He's having a little trouble. You're good. Your mic is good. Can you make it a little higher?
Sure.
Yeah, closer to your mouth, the better. Great. Welcome to Qutub.com. I'm your host, David Medor. We have a state Senate candidate with us for the 49th District, Eileen Qutub. Welcome, Eileen.
Thank you.
Eileen, what's important? Why are you running?
Well, I'm running because the economy is suffering. So this is one of the reasons I'm running. I actually grew up in Clark County. I left when in my mid-20s, but I'm back now. My family lives here, and I'm stepping up to run for this particular spot.
Okay.
It's an open seat, and so it's an opportunity for me to step in and add some leadership here in Clark County.
Well, speaking of the economy, we've got the national economy, and that has that scope. We have the local economy here in the county and in the local cities, but you're talking about the state level, and the state has its own problems and its own challenges when it comes to the economy that affect us at the local level here.
Yeah, right.
So the 49th District is representing what area?
This would be downtown Vancouver, and the urban growth boundary around Vancouver. It's everything west of 205, and where 205 and I-5 meet, that little corner there is where it stops. It goes up around Vancouver Lake all the way, to that border of Vancouver. It's Hazeldale and that area.
Okay, and you say the economy. What are you thinking of? What are the problems, and what would you like to do about the economy problems?
I think the greatest problem, of course, is unemployment. And in Clark County here, it's at, 11%. And we need to do something at the state level. And I would say, more than anything, it's getting the state out of the way. They've created many unfunded mandates upon small businesses that they just decide to bring down from above and tell small business that they need to meet these laws and don't give them any leeway. Mm-hmm. So those are things. Looking at laws that are unfunded. Also,
let me just the unfunded mandates. Some people know what that means. Other people, what do you mean unfunded mandates?
Well, that means that the state doesn't offer any support for a law. For instance, family leave. I'm not saying that should go away. What I'm saying is that's an example of something that is an unfunded mandate upon business.
So state law says individual or county or city, you have to do something that's going to cost you money, but we're not going to give you the money to do it.
Exactly. Another example of that at the county level, for instance, would be the Department of Ecology, and how that Department of Ecology has interpreted a federal law that is more strict than anywhere in the nation. Washington is the strictest interpretation of it, and what they're saying is that when you have storm water runoff in a new development, it must be brought back to prior to Anglo-European settlement. And when I first read this rule it was in a newspaper article, and I thought, can I actually be reading right? Are they really asking?
Yeah.
No, they are not. That is exactly what they are requiring. Well, my first question is, who was keeping track of the runoff at that particular time? And who lived here prior to Anglo-European settlement? And what did the landscape look like? Well, what it looked like is it wasn't civilized. I mean, as far as it was not developed, and people, lived off the land and so forth. So we don't have any record of it. Well, they can use all the computer models that they want. But for instance, if you watch the History Channel and you see Manhattan Island, years and years in the early 1800s versus now, you see the difference of what happens when it's inhabited. Do I want this to be Manhattan Island? Absolutely not. But the point is that over time, when we begin to develop and have a community of people that live together and build things and, for our commerce and so forth, You need to account for people, not just the land.
That's the balance of things. The stewardship of our economy, stewardship of our environment, they're both intertwined. And this whole thing about an unelected body
Yes.
creating law that, in our case, there's no check and balance to say, are you balanced
Right, exactly.
to balance the economic as well as the environmental impacts? To find that balance, there is no check and balance. We have this Department of Ecology just micromanaging to a great degree in the way that it's essentially killing all development, almost all development, which is killing most of the jobs in our county
Yes.
by this unelected body.
Right.
What would you do about that?
Actually, what I would do first of all is, if I am elected, I will go to Legislative Council and have them draw up a bill that requires that all agencies in the state have to follow legislative intent, and that the legislature will have oversight over all rules that a department makes. They won't be able to do it. The second thing that I would do, or maybe simultaneously, is that I learned that the Department of Ecology, their mission, there is nothing in their mission that says that they have to see cost in all of this. They do not have to look at what it will cost a county, a developer, anybody. They're just, they have carte blanche to do whatever they think is the best for the ecology of things, and yet I don't really think that is the best. I mean, there are questions on whether they've decided that that it should be this stringent an interpretation. There's even a question there. I think that they've gone over the edge with that. But those two things, by requiring in their mission that they actually look at the cost of what they are asking any county, any rule that they're making, there has to be a cost balance to it.
When you say oversight, maybe you can. Don Benton is currently a state senator, and here's what he said: that the legislative intent, the legislature passes law,
yes,
and it goes to the different agencies to implement. And those agencies make rules. And thereafter, it basically can become an excuse that can be whatever they say. Yeah, we're just fulfilling law. Yeah. And so it's a license really for anybody that doesn't have balance to jump in there. That's the danger. I'm not saying that that's happening but the problem is it's potentially danger. So what his fix was that every law, which is what they're making, really. Yeah. It's a rule is a law. Right. It comes with penalties and fines and imprisonment if you don't comply. Needs to come back to the Senate, to the legislature, and be passed by elected representatives to say yes or no or modify. That's a very specific process that would put checks and balances. Would you support that?
This is exactly what I'm talking about. This is how it is done in Oregon, for instance. When a department promulgates a rule, even though they have checked out legislative intent, then they promulgate a rule and they come before a committee, whatever committee it's concerning, and that committee looks to see if it is legislative intent, if it does meet what the legislature says it should meet. And then it is voted on by that committee and goes to the floor.
And that committee is made up of elected representatives.
Absolutely, it's the legislative
So if somebody doesn't
committee.
like something that was a rule created by an agency, then they can't just say, oh, that bad agency, I disagree with that. And they can always go back and say, well, who were the names of those elected representatives that approved that?
That's right.
Or that they wanted something and they didn't. They rejected that.
Yes.
So that's accountability. That's a representative government the way it ought to work, of the people, by the people, for the people, right?
For the people, yes. And it is the check and balance that you're talking about.
That seems to be so logical, so reasonable, yet it's broken the way it is. There is no check and balances.
That's
Government needs checks and balances.
Right.
Why hasn't this happened with the current state representatives?
I honestly do not understand it. I guess because they think going in, there's a requirement that legislative intent is followed. The problem is that bureaucratic, unelected people can go in and decide without having the legislature look at it again. I
Sure.
really don't know. It could be that leadership that's there doesn't think it's important. They actually believe that these unelected individuals have more expertise perhaps than they do, and they may. The problem is that there are people out in the general public that have even more expertise than those people who are serving in the agencies, and they would come to their elected officials and tell them.
I'll go one step further, that even if you have an agency that's filled with the world's best experts on everything,
Yes.
They basically you get a dictatorship. It's
Yes.
an
Right.
oligarchy.
Yes.
What's the more powerful position? Who has more authority? Those that don't have to answer to the voters and the taxpayers, that can make whatever rules they want, because how often does the legislature say you can't do that? Or the legislature that says, hey, agencies, go do something, and agencies, yeah, we're doing it
Yeah.
our way. And
Yes.
and we're saying it's the intent, but it's not the intent.
Yeah.
To me, I'm thinking that those bureaucrats,
Have much more
unelected,
power.
are more powerful.
Far more powerful.
So you need the checks and balances.
And you see that right now with the Department of Ecology in Clark County. They've sued.
Oh,
they've
absolutely.
gone to court, and they're having to. They may have to go to the Supreme Court with it. I hope that it turns out for the best. For
Those that
county.
take the other side of this issue, I can just hear them saying, well, that means you want to be able to just simply destroy the environment. You don't care about them. All you care about is money and just pave it over and drain everything. And wait a minute. That's not
I have children.
logic.
I have grandchildren.
Yeah.
I want to be healthy. I want to breathe
Sure,
clean air. I want
absolutely.
to drink clean water.
Everybody-
I want a beautiful environment.
Generally speaking, we want to be responsible. We have so much education and awareness now that we all want to be
We
good
all wanna
stewards.
be- yeah,
But we also want to
absolutely.
be good stewards of the economy.
That's right.
And the economy counts. People's
Yes.
jobs count. If you can't get a job, if
Yeah.
you can't build a
Right.
store, then the nature wins and people lose.
Yes. I really think it's sad that the other people, the other side would say that this is an attempt to somehow trash all of our rules of ecology and so forth. It simply is not. And it is really quite ludicrous to think that people want dirty air and all we're interested in is profit. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with reining in with a balance.
Right, you hit the right word, balance. And balance can only be assured when you have people working with elected, accountable people,
Right.
versus what we're really talking about here is unaccountability
Right.
by an agency. Okay,
Right.
so that would, I expect, help to bring checks and balances and help to bring us
Right.
more into
I think
balance.
so.
That would help our economy and have more practical ways, more innovative ways for us to be able to actually be good stewards of both of those areas, economy and environment. What else is hot?
Well, as you know, McCleary, with education, the Supreme Court came down with the
What was
McCleary
that?
decision,
The
McCleary
Okay.
decision that stated that we must fund a basic K through 12 education.
Isn't that the most fundamental first priority as
Certainly.
stated by our state constitution
That's
already?
right, it is, but apparently they didn't think that we were funding it at the right level. But there were several things said in that decision that I think should be pointed out. It doesn't really say throw money at the problem. What it says is the education should be basic. So first of all, we need to define what a basic education is. The next thing we need to do that they said in that decision is that it should be a student-focused system, not an adult-focused system. Yes, we need the teachers. Obviously, they're the ones that teach the children. But they are saying that the education system needs to be more focused to the student, and that's what I would do. I would want to have reforms that put more money in the classroom, and that does mean that there might be teachers, that there would be more teachers for the classroom or more aides or something when they, for instance, have a large class of students with English as a second language. So they have helpers so that they can teach all of the children in that classroom and help them excel. So
Can you name a specific thing that you would do to make that happen? Or help to move it in that direction?
Well, you need to change where the money is going now for administration, and many things go to administration and transportation and such. And what McCleary also said was, as far as being student-centered, it said that the days off, the time for school, the length of the year, all of these things should be brought into account, and it should actually be the children that we're thinking about, not just the adults that are running the system. Now, what you'll have to do is you'll have to look at what the curriculum is for basic education, for instance, and really get down to basics. I've talked to some teachers about this and said, what if it were in your power to say what a basic education is, where would you start? And this one teacher told me, she said, first of all, they have to know how to read. But not only do they have to know how to read, they have to know what they're reading. Once they've read something, they have to be able to communicate back what that is. And so it's those cognitive skills of reading that they need to learn. And then, of course, so that would include writing. So reading, writing, and then we need our math skills. So arithmetic, science, these kinds of things.
Basic, yeah.
Very basic.
We have 50 states. Every state has I would think you have models that are working well, yes, and those that are not working well. We have within, and even at a more local level, we have thousands of school districts. Mm-hmm. And again, you've got all that experience that have been going for years and years and years, decades. There must be some that are doing well and some that are not.
Yes, yes.
And I would think that the first thing we would do is we would find out what's really working well. Mm-hmm. Who are the shining stars?
Right. And
learn from that and see what we can do to implement that.
And there are other school boards, for instance, and school districts that operate a really clean, lean machine, haven't had to lay off teachers and so forth. We have to learn from them how they're doing it so that we can, just as you say, duplicate this. And also, we have a charter school bill that's going to be on the ballot. I think when I was in the Oregon legislature, I was a co-sponsor for the charter school bill in Oregon. I just think it's a very good thing to bring competition, and we can learn in that realm too how students can learn better. I know that this charter school bill, the initiative, does have there are some things that I would change in it, but I still think that it's a good thing to bring forward so that we do have competition.
Yeah, so define, when you say charter school, it means different things to different people.
Yes, a charter school is a public school. It's paid with public funds, but it has some freedoms to have their own charters. Charters, for instance, they can be an arts school or a science school or a language school, or they can have an emphasis in a certain area. And I know from charter schools around the nation, Arizona is just a shining example that began a charter schools long ago, and so they have examples already where they specialize in certain areas.
Is that the primary identification, the strength of a charter school, is that it can specialize so that people,
yes,
if they have an area they really want to be able to specialize, they can select that school,
yes,
and find the passion,
yes,
their career, and optimize it even as a child.
That's right. That is very correct. The other good thing about many charters is that they allow for the teaching. They allow, for instance, somebody who is in the industry and not necessarily a certified teacher to come in and do some education with these children. So you can have a scientist come in. You can have a high-tech person come in and specialize in that. And so you, of course, you would be very careful that you would have an oversight with other teachers.
Yeah.
But the point is, you're bringing from the private sector and those that have been, yeah, doing it.
Eileen, that sounds so good to me, because we have 27% dropout rate. People,
Yeah.
More than 1 in 4 of our students are not graduating from high school. Mm-hmm. And I look at that and say, why not?
Yeah.
Well, they lose hope.
Yeah.
They haven't they didn't find something they're really interested in. There's a gulf there between this academic education where the kids are thinking, what's the point? I don't know what I'm going to do. And they might get to the third year in college and think, I don't know, maybe I'll become a teacher or something. What the missing link is business, and experts in business, people who love what they do.
Yes,
And say, I get paid
yes.
besides. This is
Right.
great. For
Yeah.
them to come in, and you don't have to be a credentialed teacher, but you can
Right.
be a person that loves the field that you're in, come in and share with the kids, and the
Yes.
kids say, man, I want to learn more about that. I want to do that.
Yes.
And I'm gonna do that. In order to
Yes.
do that, I'm gonna get on the path
Yes.
to equip me to do it.
Exactly.
And so, who would be opposed to charter schools?
Well, I
Well,
guess some teachers
there are some.
unions are.
Why? Why? I mean,
Well,
there-
because
how
I
can
mean,
it make sense?
I assume that they're opposed to it because they are resistant to change. Number one,
Well-
and they don't want uncredentialed teachers in there. And
Well,
who knows?
industry
I don't-
experts
you
are
know,
not credentialed teachers. They're
no,
experts
they are
in
not.
industry.
And I'm sorry to say that I actually come from a family of educators, and most teachers really are very dedicated, love the work
Sure.
they do, and do a very good job.
Sure. My daughter, my oldest daughter, is a full-time, well, not a full-time teacher now. She's a full-time mommy now, but
Yeah.
her husband is a full-time teacher.
Yeah.
So I know what
Yes.
that they work hard. They're very dedicated,
Yes.
and they love what they
They
do.
love
I
what
mean, if
they
they're
do.
good, that's the combination.
That's right. So I can't tell you what they're resisting. I think that what I've read from, for instance, what the unions are saying, the Washington Education Association is saying, is that what it does is it takes funds away from our system as it is now, and so. They say, well, we're struggling already. Why would you take funds away? But actually, the funds are for students in this state, not for a system.
Yeah.
They should follow the student, to educate the student, and that is what our Constitution
Yeah.
says,
And
to
I
give a
can-
basic education.
And the natural gravity for government is to try to grow the bureaucracy and the overhead. In reality, there's got to be a continual reminder. Hey, what are we here for? What's the point? Our point is to inspire kids, to prepare kids to, in whatever we can do to enrich that process. And it requires some self-sacrifice.
Sure.
That not only let's say I'm a school administrator or a teacher. I'm not just interested in how much can I get out of it. What are my benefits? What's my pay? What's my retirement? Yeah, we're all
Right,
interested in that, but that cannot be the point.
No.
It has to be mutually beneficial. You have to, at the end of the day, know that I've made the world a better place. I really have, even if I sacrificed in order to make an investment in those kids that you establish relationships with, then that's worth better. That's worth so much more than a fat paycheck
That's
or
right.
great benefits.
Right.
Yeah, ideally you get both of those, but if you have to, no
Trade
great
off.
effort happens without some self-sacrifice to dedicate
That's
for
right.
someone else. So can you draw a contrast here between some of the issues and priorities between you and the other person that's running for this seat, Annette Cleveland?
Yes. Well, the one thing that I would say is the thing I haven't touched on that I would like to change too is more responsible government, reining in some of the irresponsible spending. Even though revenues are down and hard choices are made, I know I served in the Oregon legislature for 6 years while I was in Oregon, and during that time, during that 6-year period, I served on the Ways and Means Committee. It was a joint committee. All of those 6 years, I was chair of subcommittees of some of these Ways and Means things. So I had a very close look at the budget. And while it is hard to get down into the nitty-gritty of a budget and pull things out that actually will make a difference, streamline and get rid of redundancies, have departments work together that are overlapping with their functions, because time is money, and so any employee that's doing the same job that another department is doing as the
Redundancy.
piece of paper walks down the line there and somebody's duplicating it, you need to get rid of those things. Now, it takes time and work to do that, but it can be done. And what I would like, the reason I say that is because often what happens in the legislature, and has been happening in Washington because of the leadership there, is the legislature wants to come back to the people all the time to raise taxes. In the 49th district, we have had an opportunity on several occasions, and we will again in this election, have the opportunity to vote on an initiative to require a 2/3 majority in order to raise taxes. In the 49th district, they have voted 2-1 for a 2/3 majority, and yet the representatives in this district have not abided by that. In fact, one of the representatives has sued the state, saying that that was an unconstitutional law that the people passed.
And it's okay to say his name. That was Jim
Jim
Mueller.
Mueller. It was
Jim
Jim
Mueller
Mueller.
sued the citizens of his constituents
Yes.
because he
They
believed
didn't- yeah,
that he had a better way. And
Yes.
that comes down to a fundamental principle that we see that we have to remind ourselves, if you've been in office for a long time, and Jim's been in office a long time,
Yeah.
that the position is a representative.
Representative,
You are
yes.
representing
Yeah.
the constituents to be their
Yes.
voice rather than to say, I know better than you.
Yes.
You know, just pay the bill. It's I don't know what happens after a while. It seems like
It's almost like you say, well, the air in the capital area, something's wrong with the air. But I will say that I learned during the Columbian interview that my opponent, Annette Cleveland, does not support a 2/3 majority to raise taxes. She supports only a simple majority.
so it's easier to raise taxes.
Absolutely, and we need to make it harder for the legislature. They need to get those 2/3 votes in order to raise taxes, because otherwise they won't look for other places to make changes in the budget. They'll
Yes.
just go to the people for more. And guess what? The people don't have the money. Right now, most people, and particularly different demographics in the 49th district, are really struggling. And as I stated before, in Clark County, the unemployment rate is, 11%?
For people who are looking for jobs,
Yeah,
and it's higher for those that have
many
given
have
up.
given up. Gas prices, food prices. I mean, you go to fill your tank with gas. My goodness, mine's almost $60 when I fill it up.
Let me ask you, because it's amazing how fast the time goes
Yeah.
here. We haven't talked about one of the biggest issues that face our area here, which is the Columbia River Crossing project. And right now we have a proposition on the ballot, Prop 1. And there are those there's already a state law, High Capacity Transit Law, HCT, High Capacity Transit Act, that says any form of funding, operation, and maintenance of light rail. That was a state law that was recently passed a couple of years ago. Needs to be approved by the voters. And yet we have local representatives that say it doesn't matter. If the voters vote that down, we're going to fund it anyway. Whether you like it or not, we know best, and we're going to find a way that's not going to require voter approval. Now, as a state representative, are you going to be involved? Will you have a position on that? What are you going to do?
I will definitely support what the people. Let me put it this way. I do not support light rail. If Proposition 1 passes, we'll have to look at ways to deal with the rapid transit and so forth. But if the voters do not want light rail, and they say they don't want light rail or this Columbia River crossing and all of the things that, they don't want to pay more taxes in order to do this, I will definitely work to stop this project. It's been a boondoggle. It has wasted, $150, $170 million for the planning. We still don't have the correct plan. Light rail is not meant for a community of this size. Light rail is meant more for a community like Washington, D.C. or New York City, like their subway system and so forth.
The high density.
Yes, very high density. We don't have that kind of high density. Furthermore, light rail really does not attract new riders. Most of the time, the people that are riding on light rail, the commuters on light rail, are coming from a bus in the first place. Light rail does not reduce automobile emissions because the first 5 minutes that your car begins to run, and you must drive to a station or a bus, a bus station too, unless you have a bus stop in front of your house or can walk to the bus stop. But you emit into the air those things that are damaging the environment.
And there are those that also think, oh, light rail is the greatest thing ever. I used to take light rail all the time. But regardless of the advantages and disadvantages, and there are both, still when the people speak and they say yes or they say no, their yes means yes and the no means no, I would think. And there's a lot of people that say, yeah, yes, but and then they do it anyway. And the question is, if the voters say no, as a state legislator, this project's not going to be funded unless the legislature says, yes, we'll fund it.
And I
so
will work.
If they say no and they say, well, we'll fund it anyway, will you
No,
not fund it?
I will absolutely work so that it's not funded.
Okay.
If the people say no, I will work very hard to see to it that it's not funded.
Okay.
I've gone to a couple of the joint transportation meetings when the legislature is there. I've also watched them on CBTV, and I remember one in particular that I was watching on CBTV that took place in July, I think. I was really dismayed with the legislators that were sort of putting down, in a way, the idea that the community knows what they need and what they want. And so it does concern me that the legislature is not looking and listening to the people of this community. And I think it is very incumbent upon the representatives and senators from this Southwest Washington area to be a voice for the people.
That's a really good point. And I look at one indicator, kind of a symptom of those that are not really wanting to represent citizens, and that is that they are not willing to have a two-way conversation with them. Mm-hmm. That they say, yeah, you can speak, your time's up,
yes,
3
right.
minutes,
3
okay,
minutes.
next. And it's a one-way conversation, you might as well be
Yes.
talking to a wall.
Yes.
And it's my own personal opinion, but I believe that if you're going to run for office, regardless of your party, regardless of whether or not you got a friendly interviewer or not, that you have an obligation to answer the questions, mm-hmm. to share your views openly, and to present your views to those that you're asking to vote for you.
Yes.
And in this, we've invited everybody that's on the ballot to come have an interview here, and most of the Republicans have. Mm-hmm. One Democrat has, but the rest of the Democrats will not have a conversation.
Yeah.
And they think, well, David's a Republican. David, well, yeah, sure. I don't care. I will go to any situation, any interviewer as a candidate, and it doesn't matter how friendly I am. My point is not to get elected at all costs. It's really to share who I am. And if the people say, well, I share the values, then
they will. That's exactly right.
If I'm the wrong guy,
then they won't.
Everybody should know.
You need to be. That's when I've run for office before. This is always how I have couched it. That I will tell the truth, and I will not feel guilty if I am elected to vote exactly how I said I would vote when I had the opportunity to talk about it. I'll say another difference between Annette and I is she does support light rail.
Absolutely.
And she supports the CRC.
I heard her speak in full support. She is all in on this CRC light rail tolling project. Fund it no matter what. If the people say yes or no, she's going to fund it. So is Jim Mueller. He's up for election as well. So is Sharon Wiley. She's up for election as well. And they won't sit down and talk. No. We've gone long. So if you have one more point, you have an opportunity. Otherwise, you can just simply talk directly to the voters now. You got one more point you want to make?
Well, I guess that I would say I do have experience, and I don't want to keep going back to the fact that I was in the Oregon legislature, but what I think it does is it helps me to have the experience to be able to hit the road running when I go into the legislature. Like I said, I grew up in Clark County. I love Clark County, and I want to serve the people of Clark County. I understand that we need to bridge the gap between all of the lawmakers, but mostly we need to bridge the gap between the people and the legislator. So I really want to go there and represent the people. And we need to send a message to Olympia that prosperity isn't created there in Olympia in the marble halls, but it's created right here in our community. Mm-hmm. I think that my experience in the legislature, and right now I sit on the Clark County Planning Commission, all of this experience has given me what I think that we need to go. So I would just humbly ask for people to vote for Eileen Qutub for State Senate in the 49th District.
All right, and you have a website?
I do. It is EileenQutub.com. That's EileenQutub.com. gmail.com.
Okay, and you want to share any other contact information, an email or phone number?
Email Eileen Qutub at gmail.com. And you could get all of that information from the website.
Okay, very good. Any last point? You feel like you've talked to the voters as much as you want to talk to?
Well, one other point that I would say is that while I was in the legislature, my peers elected me as majority whip. I was deputy co-chair of the Ways and Means Committee, and I was selected by the Council of State Governments, one of 40 people in all 3 branches of government, to be a toll fellow. And that toll fellow is a person in state government that has had exemplary service. And so I just want to tell the people that I have served and I will serve you well.
Okay, all right.
Thank
Thank you, Eileen.
Thank you, David.
That wraps it.
Thanks so much.